put together a list of the fan control football players that have been selected to the XFL draft. If you like fan control football and you're like me, Team 8 Okie, that's my team. I followed fan control football last year, based in Atlanta. We've had people on talking about fan control football, commercials about fan control football tryouts. Anyway, a bunch of those players are now drafted into the XFL. And it's interesting that the XFL's Orlando Guardians drafted fan control football players early and often. Let's take a look and who Guardians fans have to look forward to on their team. So Sam had spoken about the potential of FCF becoming a de facto feeder league for the XFL since the showcases began. A large group of fan control football players went to showcases hoping to make the XFL the next step in their climb to the NFL. There's no telling how legitimately these players were being considered other than those that got draft invites. Using this factor alone, it became apparent the XFL coaches and scouts seemed to like what they saw and the talent the FCF held. 11 players have Robert Ford, current Guardians offensive coordinator, who spent time with the FCF as wide receiver coach. So there is a connection between Robert Ford and 11 players on the Guardians staff, or our Guardians team. So by the time the draft wrapped up Thursday, a total of 15 FCF players were selected. But there was one team, however, that stood out above the rest when it came to the level of investment of former FCF stars. That team, of course, is the Orlando Guardians. The Guardians roster may as well be a Season 2.0 FCF All-Star team. DeAndre Francois was the first FCF player selected by an XFL team, getting assigned on Tuesday. Francois seemed to get his wish fairly quickly, being reunited with his number one wide receiver. In the first season of the FCF, the pair helped lead the Glaciers to the first ever People's Championship. Skilled position players on Wednesday. It didn't take long for Orlando to revisit the talent pool. At round 1, 2, they selected Andrew Jamil of the Glacier Boys. Jamil and Francois are certainly familiar with each other, and that should help the two adjust to the outdoor game quickly. This pre-developed chemistry is important to teams when you're building from scratch. This is why we saw Arlington pair with Kyle Sloter and Sal Cannella with the USFL, New Orleans Breakers. In round 9 of the skills position, they tapped FCF well with for a fellow wideout, this time selecting Patrick Smith, Tennessee State, 5'11", 195, former QB who made the move to wide receiver in college. Smith was used many ways in 2022. 2 passes, completing 1 for 25 yards. He ran 3 times for 22 yards, added 17 receptions for 260 yards and 4 touchdowns, adding 5 two-point conversion. Highly productive in college, 160 touches, 2,582 yards, and 32 touchdowns in 31 games. He adds value on special teams with 7 tackles and 38 total returns for 374 yards and a touchdown. So well-rounded player for the team there. Secondary, 2 more players. DBs Mike Lee and Roman Tatum were selected. Lee is 25-year-old safety. He was a second in the league in tackles with 41. He also produced 5 interceptions. Hailing from the University of Kansas, he was a 4-year starter who collected 286 tackles, 5 forced fumbles, 5 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 3 pass deflected. Tatum wasn't able to do much in Season 2. He picked up 4 tackles. However, the 28-year-old cornerback is talented cover man, spent 2 years at Delaware before he got charged with assault and dismissed. In 16 games at Southern Illinois University, produced 13 tip passes, 1 interception. Also happened to spend time in the 2020 season with the Wildcats, the XFL's Wildcats. He returns to the XFL this time on the opposite coast after a short stint on the FCF's shutdown squad. Offensive line, which is a big thing that players, the XFL has been talking about, has 2 players that spent time in FCF last season. Offensive linemen and defensive units are asked to play 2 games each weekend. These units play for 2 different teams in the same day of games. This makes for highly conditioned linemen and defensive athletes coming from the FCF. Camille Matthews was one of the top offensive linemen in the FCF last season, playing for the Trenchmen in Season 2.0. Matthews established himself as a must-have for the XFL in 2023. The 30-year-old player is a Murray State alum. Matthews spent the 2020 season with the undefeated Roughnecks. After the XFL collapsed, Matthews found a home in the FCF for 2 seasons. Now he gets an opportunity to return the XFL, but with a new team. He can recapture his undefeated ways in 2020 in Orlando. We'll see about that. Sunday Deng, a 25-year-old rookie whose first post-pro season came in Season 2.0 with the FCF. Deng was the anchor of the offensive line unit. The Block Party, I remember them. Now he returns to the outdoor game, playing just one game a weekend for the XFL after spending a year playing 2 games each week. 6'6", 290 tackle will turn to the XFL next to a veteran in Matthews that can help him continue to develop. Specialists. Tommy Uger is an all FCF tight end in season 2.0, was selected as the long snapper for the Guardians. However, the Guardians selected just one other tight end in the draft, instead opting to pick 8 wideouts. Uger is a former wide receiver that made the move to tight end. He developed into a very capable blocker as well, also as a long snapper. Grouped in the offensive line unit known as the force field, he had a solid season, showcased his abilities as a blocker. Although he didn't use his skills as a long snapper in the FCF, he continued to work on long snapping to perfect his craft. The more you can do, the more valuable you are to the team. Also, DB Lashard Durr had spent time in the NFL's Colts, IFL's Frisco Fighters, and later FCF as well. Durr was also involved in the 2020 XFL draft. He now returns to the outdoor games after his first time in a few years. Offensive lineman Abram Holland spent 2.0 with the Fan Control Football League. The New Mexico native is 30 years old, but getting the opportunity to continue his playing career. Holland was no stranger to indoor football, playing time in the IFL's Orlando Rattlers as well. Playing on the unit as the Wall, he lined up with XFL player Jonathan Urazari. Also, this was a big one. QB Mitch Kidd led the league in passing yards and ended up being one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He would compile 871 total yards with 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's played with my Iokis. Kidd is no stranger to indoor football, having previously spent time with the CFI's Salina Liberty. That was a name. When I saw Mitch Kidd's name come up, I got excited because I'm a Team 8 Okie owner. So I knew that name, and was a great player in FCF. So on the surface, many people will look at this roster as one of the weakest and least deep in terms of previous experience. Most of these teams are built with outdoor football veterans, guys who have tasted the NFL and tended to use their XFL as their launching back to the big league. However, Guardians looked to younger and less proven players from the revolutionary new league launched just 2 seasons ago. That's Fan Control Football League. This league has done a tremendous job divvying up a mixture of former NFL stars and current players trying to gain a foothold in professional sports. Several of these guys are former XFL 2020 players that landed in the FCF due to the timing of its launching in 2021, just about 1 calendar year after both the XFL and AAF collapsed in 2019 and 2020. Respectively, Robert Ford was instrumental in creating this bridge for the FCF players to cross right into XFL rosters. Thanks to his time with the league as a wide receivers coach, he saw the FCF was not lacking in talent and decided he needed to bring in guys he knew to build the offense. He certainly brought in a lot, and he did to perfection, building out his offensive unit with a total of 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 3 offensive linemen from the league he last knew. Congratulations to all players on this opportunity. So if you're an FCF fan, you're definitely going to want to check out the XFL season. I'm excited for the quarterbacks and Francois and Kidd playing, as well as Andrew Jamil, another great player in the FCF. So definitely, if you're an FCF fan, we'll be tracking these guys throughout the season to see how they do. Also, the 3.0 season is right around the corner as well.